In a quiet village nestled between two rivers, there lived a girl named Amma. Now, Amma was not just beautiful, though she was that too. She was the kind of woman who made a room feel different when she walked in. Calm, graceful, deliberate, like still water on a windless day. Every young man in the village had tried to win her heart. Chiefs' sons, skilled hunters, farmers with good land and strong backs. She turned them all away, gently but firmly. Her mother would shake her head and say, "Amma, you are too choosy. One day you will pick nothing and end up with no one." But Amma would just smile softly and say, "Mama, I am not being choosy. I am being careful. I am waiting for the one who feels right." Her mother never quite understood what that meant. But Amma knew. She had always known there was something or someone she was waiting for. She just didn't know yet what form he would take when she finally arrived. Then one dry season evening, as the sun melted into the horizon and the sky turned the color of burning coal, a stranger walked into the village. Nobody knew where he came from. He had no family in the village, no childhood friends who remembered him, no trader who had seen him on the road. He simply appeared. His name, he said, was Kofi. He was tall, quietly confident, impossibly handsome. And he had this way of speaking, soft and deliberate, like every single word had been considered carefully before it left his mouth. The children stared, the women whispered. Even the men who should have been suspicious found themselves standing a little straighter when he passed. He went straight to Amma's father's compound and asked clearly, without hesitation, for her hand in marriage. Now this was unusual. A man who comes alone with no family to speak for him, no history anyone could verify. In those days, that was not just unusual. It was a red flag. But Kofi had brought gifts, extraordinary gifts. Gold that nobody had seen the likes of before. Cloth so fine it felt like cool water when you ran it between your fingers. And something else. A quiet, magnetic confidence that made people feel strangely at ease around him, even when their instincts said otherwise. The elders gathered, as was tradition. They sat in the meeting hut for 2 full days, talking, debating, drinking palm wine and arguing in hushed, serious tones. Some said, "We cannot give our daughter to a man with no people. A man with no roots can be blown anywhere by the wind." Others said, "But look at what he has brought. Look at how he carries himself. Has anyone seen him behave badly? Has anyone heard a word against him?" And nobody had. Not one person in the village could point to a single wrong thing Kofi had done. So after 2 days, the elders reached their decision. They would allow the courtship to continue. And Amma had already made up her mind. But not everyone was at peace with the decision. Amma's mother, a sharp, observant woman who had seen enough of life to trust her instincts, began to watch Kofi carefully. Not obviously, not in a way he would notice. She watched the way you watch a fire you're not sure is fully under control. And slowly, quietly, she began to notice things. Small things, easy to dismiss on their own. But together they added up to something she couldn't name. He never sat at the communal fire during mealtimes. He always had a reason to be somewhere else. He smiled easily and spoke warmly, but she had never seen him truly laugh. Not the deep, unguarded laughter of a man who is completely at home. And then there was old Mame Abena. Mame Abena was the oldest woman in the village, ancient in the way that made people stop counting years. She was known, deeply known, for seeing things others could not. The night before the wedding, she came to Amma's mother. She didn't knock. She was simply there, standing in the doorway, her dark eyes steady and serious. She said quietly, "That man your daughter is marrying, he does not eat with others. He does not sleep like others. And when the moon is full, have you noticed? He disappears." Amma's mother opened her mouth to argue. Mame Abena held up one hand and stopped her. "I am not asking you to stop the wedding," she said. "I am asking you one question. in all the weeks he has been among you. Have you ever seen him drink water?" That night, Amma's mother sat very still and thought back through every meal, every gathering, every shared moment. And she realized with a cold, slow certainty that she had not once. She went straight to Amma. Amma did not want to hear it. She listened to her mother. She heard every word. And then she looked across the compound at Kofi, who was standing in the moonlight, calm and beautiful. And she felt that feeling again, that pull, that recognition. And she made her choice. "Mama, I know what I am doing." The wedding was everything a wedding should be. Music that shook the ground, dancing that lasted until the stars began to fade, food and laughter and the kind of joy that fills a village like warm air. Amma was radiant, absolutely radiant. And Kofi looked at her like she was the only thing in the world. But if anyone had looked carefully at the ground beneath his feet in the bright moonlight that night, they would have noticed something strange. Everyone cast a shadow. The trees, the children, the elders. Everyone except Kofi. For the first season of their marriage, Amma was happy. Deeply, completely, almost dangerously happy. Kofi was everything a husband could be. He was kind without being weak, attentive without being suffocating. He brought her flowers from parts of the forest she had never been to. Flowers with no names she recognized, in colors she had never seen before. He told her stories, long, winding, beautiful stories about places and peoples and histories that felt both completely foreign and somehow deeply familiar. The village warmed to him, even the skeptics. Even her mother, slowly, reluctantly, began to soften. And Amma thought, maybe I was right. Maybe love really does know what the eyes cannot see. But then, small things began to happen. It started with the nights. Amma would fall asleep beside Kofi, warm, safe, content. And then something would pull her awake in the deep middle of the night. That particular silence, that particular stillness. She would reach out beside her, and the mat would be cold, empty, undisturbed, as though no one had been lying there at all. The first time it happened, she told herself she had imagined it. The second time, she told herself he must have stepped out for air and lost track of time sitting under the stars. Amma smiled back, but she noticed, as he sat down beside her, that his robe smelled faintly of something she couldn't name, something deep and dark and earthy, like soil that had never seen sunlight. On the night of the next full moon, Amma did not sleep. She lay still, breathing slowly, pretending. And when she felt the mat shift beside her and heard her careful footsteps toward the door, she counted to 30. Then she rose. She wrapped her white shawl around her shoulders. She stood at the edge of the forest and looked into the darkness ahead. Every part of her that was sensible, every part that remembered her mother's words and Mommy Abena's warning, told her to go back inside. But the part of her that loved him, the part that needed to know, that part took the first step forward, and then another, and another, until the village lights were behind her and the forest had swallowed her whole. She followed the faint light she could see between the trees, deeper and deeper, past every tree she recognized, past every landmark she knew, into a part of the forest that felt ancient in a way that made the air different. And then she heard it. Voices, low and rhythmic, speaking in a language made of sounds she felt in her chest rather than heard with her ears. She pushed through the last wall of undergrowth and stopped completely. A clearing, wide and perfectly circular, as though the trees themselves had stepped back to make room. A fire in the center burning in colors fire should not burn, blue at the edges, white at the heart, and around it, figures, a circle of them, moving, swaying, present and yet not fully present, their forms shifting between solid and something else entirely, something that was not flesh. And there, in the center of them all, was Kofi. He was speaking in that language of chest sounds, laughing, really laughing, in a voice she had never once heard during all their time together, deep and resonant and completely unguarded, the laugh of someone who was finally, completely himself. Then one of the figures looked toward the trees, and Kofi turned, and in the full light of that impossible fire, Amma saw Amma's face, truly saw it. Not the face she had fallen in love with, not the face the village knew, The face